قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ وَخْشَوْهُمْ. But the fight was between men on this side and men on this side. But they are called An-Nas. Okay? So the word An-Nas has a different utility from the word people in English. So if you use English as your linguistic reference point, it can cause some confusion. So you need to know the Arabic language context, okay? Okay. You know the story of the three people who were discussing the worship of the Prophet ﷺ. And they said, but he is a prophet. Okay, he doesn't have to do more because Allah has forgiven all his sins. So he doesn't have to do more. But we, lay people, we have to do much more. If the Prophet makes istighfar, right, we have to make more istighfar. If he prays, we have to do more prayer. If he fasts, we have to do more fasting. So each one of them picked a side and said, as far as I'm concerned, I will pray at night and never sleep at night. The second said, I will fast every day and I will never break the fast in any day. So fasting for good. Every day, not only Ramadan, not only one day off, one day on, no. Fasting 30 days a month, 7 days a month. Then the third said, as far as I'm concerned, I believe that family is really a distraction. So I'm not going to get married because if I have a wife, I cannot fast and I cannot, spend sleepless nights praying. So if I need this, I don't need a wife, I will have to do this. And the Prophet ﷺ heard this and he invited them and he said, are you the guys who said this and this and this? They said, yes, we are. He said, what prompted you to do this? They said, oh Prophet Muhammad, you are forgiven and you do that much. How about us? We don't know if we're forgiven or not. We have to do more. He says, listen, I am the most God-fearing amongst all of you. And I fast and break the fast. And I pray at night and sleep at night. And I marry women. Anyone who desires any way other than the way I do it, then he's not part of me. Okay? فَمَنْ رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. This is narrated in Bukhari. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh says, using this in his commentary on this hadith, he says, if celibacy, and I want you to keep this word, if celibacy is part of Islam, we would have castigated women, which means, alas, render them permanently disabled in terms of sexual activity. And Anas ibn Malik used to say that the Prophet ﷺ would order us to get married and he would prohibit us from celibacy. And he would be very, very strong in his condemnation of anybody who invites people to celibacy, because celibacy is regarded as corruption. And he would say, marry the lovely, lovable, and loving wife, and multiply, for I am going to take pride in you and your numbers on the day of judgment. Meaning, if you have a lot of Muslims, that pool is greater to have a lot of righteous people. But if the pool itself is very small, then the number of righteous people will also be relatively small. So the Prophet wants the Ummah to marry and multiply. Why? Because some people will fall on the side, but at least some core will be large enough to pull everybody in. This hadith is narrated in Abu Dawood and Nasa'i and Al-Hakim, and Al-Albani levels it up to the level of authentic. So we see from the statements of the Sahaba and their position and their understanding of the Sunnah of the Prophet that marriage is that vital. You heard someone saying, if I'm left with 10 days, I'll be afraid of fitna, I will get married. Uh, as we mentioned before, that a person who has physical inhibitions that would render him disabled sexually is very discouraged not to marry, at least without declaration, because this would be deception and it would be haram. But some scholars, they believe that he should still be encouraged to get married. And definitely, for me to understand this, I struggled a lot to look at how do you reconcile everybody's opinion when fuqaha say something as far left or far right from the stream. And I found that in those cases, I would think that there are certain ayat in the Quran that gives you guidance, and this is something that we need to learn as we study fiqh. That when you find something very strange, you look and dig to see what could give you a clue how to understand what is going on. Why does a scholar go that far? And they don't mention reasons all the time. So they say that's it. That's his opinion. So I found that the Quran, for example, talks about the adulterer and the adulteress. Okay? So it says, an adulterer would not commit adultery except with an adulteress woman, right? And the opposite is also true. Or a mushrik. Okay? So I believe, and that's my personal reconciliation process, that if a man has inhibition to perform, then, and if there's a woman that has inhibition, they should be encouraged, both of them, to marry each other, because neither one has interest or ability to perform. But to live alone for life would be like rendering a life sentence on both sides, to never enjoy even the company of each other. So the opinion that these guys should be completely barred, I believe, is only related to barring them from marrying somebody who has active desires that must be fulfilled. But to marry each other, if they have, both of them, both sides, have difficulty performing, but they need the company of each other. It is like, for example, I cannot imagine any scholar would say that a man in his 70 and a woman in her 75 years of age, that they are to be barred from getting married to each other just because they are out of the age of desires and so on and so forth. Okay? Because sexual desire is not the only thing in marriage to start with, but it is a big deal for both sides. Okay? So this is how I personally came to this understanding. Definitely scholars who insisted that they should avoid trying to get married, they are talking basically, and if you read the reasoning, here I will read you a statement, then you see where I'm coming from. Here it says, والرأي الثاني أن التخلي له أفضل. The second opinion for a person who has sexual disability is that leaving marriage is better for him or her. That is why, because بيقول هنا ذلك لأنه لا يحصل ولا يحصل مصالح النكاح ولأنه يمنع زوجته من التحصيل بغيره. He doesn't benefit sexually from marriage, and his wife, if she's married to a person who is disabled, she will be barred from getting her own sexual desires fulfilled. So it becomes like a punishment for her. And he would hurt her by having her as his wife. ويضر بها بحبسها على نفسه ويعرض نفسه لواجبات وحقوق لعله لا يتمكن من القيام بها ويشتغل عن العلم والعبادة بما لا فائدة له فيه. يعني he doesn't benefit from marriage on that side, and he stops her from satisfying her desire. So it is bad on both sides. So I believe that the only way I would find reconciliation between the two opinions is to make sure that an able body is married to an able body, and this able body is given the chance to marry the disabled body, so that marriage is fulfilled, but each is in their own context. I think this point is covered, I hope. Okay.
But the man still have the choice that he could keep his disabled wife and get married for an active wife.
Definitely, definitely. And this is something similar to a husband who is married, and his wife became physically sick, or let us say mentally sick. Okay? So she got some sort of disability to perform as a wife, whether it is in terms of serving an husband or in the intimate relationship, right? What happens when a woman becomes very sick? Does a man go out and commit adultery? No. Islam says he can marry another woman. And he should be keeping his wife. Definitely, he should be able to afford it. But if he cannot afford it, he will have to divorce one for the other. Okay? So some people are able to continue the marriage with a disabled wife without having to afford another family because he cannot afford it. Okay? So they continue and they sacrifice some of their needs to maintain the family. If they are able to do it, that's okay. Okay? But would a judge require him to do it? No, he cannot. A judge cannot force a man to stay in a marital relationship where he doesn't get his basic needs fulfilled. Okay. We mentioned the hadith about the Prophet ﷺ in Bukhari and Muslim encouraging youth in particular, يا معشر الشباب من استطاع منكم الباء فليتزوج. O youth, if any one of you can afford and is able to get married, let him get married. I want you to listen to the rest. فإنه أغض للبصر وأحصن للفرج. Because it's more of a help to lower your gaze and not extend a look of lust to the other gender, right? And أحصن, which means أشد إحصانا. It is more protection to your private. Okay? وأحصن للفرج. I want you to pay attention to the way these two words are mentioned. أغض وأحصن. أغض means it is more helpful to lower your gaze. And أحصن, which means it's more protection to your privates, which means it is a shield. And the usage of preferential statement. Do you know what preferential statement is? Like when you say greater, bigger, darker, that is preferential level in the language. Comparative to preferential. Okay? So this usage of comparative or preferential statement is to say if the person does not lower his gaze before marriage, marriage may not really be his way out of this problem. He will continue to extend a look of lust to the other gender. Some people say, oh, my son is like lusting after a woman. I want to get him married to get rid of it. No, you need to teach him the basic respect for the other gender, or teach her the basic respect so that when they get married and that desire is satisfied, they need not to look again beyond the marriage. This will be their parking lot. They will be satisfied and content. So the hadith uses this language to draw our attention, because the hadith doesn't say this would lead to lowering your gaze and lead to protecting. No, it says أغض وأحصن. This is the language.
Sure.
Yes.
You mean like the ba'a? It means the physical ability, or the like, or the financial ability?
I didn't get the first word.
The